Ranger Randy Morgenson was considered to be one of the most experienced search and rescue rangers, who spent more than 28 years working for the Sequoia National Park and the Kings National Park when he suddenly went missing under suspicious circumstances. On the 21st of July back in 1996, according to the official missing persons report, the disappearance of Randy Morgenson has been officially explained as an attempt made by the ranger to either fake his own death or to leave this world prematurely. Oddly enough, however, the details surrounding this case appear to tell a different story and seem to be difficult for fellow search and rescue rangers to explain. To provide some context into Randy's life, ever since a young age Randy Morgenson had been obsessed with the outdoors. His love for nature and obsession with the wilderness would lead him to sign up and work as a backcountry ranger for the Sequoia and Kings National Park every year for the next 28 years. Being a backcountry ranger came with very little perks and even less impressive pay. According to Randy, despite being one of the most senior rangers of the area, every year he was required to reapply for the position and was unable to receive medical benefits, a retirement plan or any insurance protection outside of a $100,000 life insurance payout, which would be paid to his family in the event that he passed away while working out in the national parks. The lack of benefits or future financial prospects, however, did not prevent Randy from returning every year to the national parks to work as a backcountry ranger, later describing the primary benefit of his job as being able to be paid in sunsets. Unlike the average person, Randy Morgenson loved long stretches of solitude out in the wilderness, and believed that he had become hypnotized by the beauty of the surrounding landscape, making him unable to leave his position as a ranger, despite the financial hardships it caused him year after year. It was back in 1973 that Randy Morgenson would write his Mercure Meadow Logbook, a short philosophy to living life wild and free that would capture his personality the best. All of your life someone is pointing the way, directing you this way and that, determining for you which road is best travelled. Here is your chance to be adventurous. Don't forever seek the easiest way. Take the way you find. Don't demand trail signs and sturdy bridges. Don't demand we show you the mountains. Seek them and find them yourself. This is your birthright as an animal, most commonly denied you. Be free enough from intentions to find goodness wherever you are and whatever is happening. Here, for once in your life, you can now live by whim. Here's your one chance to get lost. Fall in the creek and find a beautiful place. To his fellow co-workers, it became obvious that Randy Morgenson was becoming increasingly dissatisfied with a civilized life. According to another ranger, Randy would often refer to national park tourists as Swinus Americanus, a made-up Latin term translation to mean American pigs, in reference to the amount of trash he would have to pick up after tourists had visited a location. Over the years, Randy would invent a series of terms that helped to represent his anger towards tourists and their behaviour in the area, referring to their activities as backpacker detritus, and often engaging in direct altercations with the more aggressive visitors in the area. After 28 years working for the National Park Service and becoming one of the most experienced search and rescue rangers of the region, colleagues would remark that Randy Morgenson appeared to have been down and stuck in a hypnotic state, often making comments about his regrets in his life. A fellow ranger of only 2 years in the area, a man by the name of Rick Sanger, would later remark that Randy made several comments asking if he thought that spending the last 3 decades working as a ranger for the national parks was worth it, and whether or not he had wasted his life. Soon thereafter, fellow rangers would learn that Randy Morgenson had an affair with a fellow ranger. She was called Lioness, causing his wife Judy Morganson to file divorce papers. Randy's colleagues had grown familiar with Judy, as she would often spend many years joining Randy for his work and travelling out into the national parks. However, towards 1996, Randy's wife was no longer showing up to join Randy in his interest, and within a few years, Randy would become entangled with Lioness, a colleague who is often his only point of contact out in the national park's wilderness. On the 20th of July 1996, while working in a remote location, Randy Morgenson would radio his wife and a colleague several times throughout the day and night, and seemed to have been distracted. According to his wife, she would later provide a statement saying that she believed Randy had been lonely and was only trying to make small talk to try and calm his nerves. After several hours of radioing in, it appeared that Randy and his wife may have gotten into an argument, which would lead to Randy abruptly ending the conversation by saying the following: "I won't be bothering you anymore." At the time of the calls, the colleague and his wife just thought that Randy was getting ready to go to bed. On the 25th of July 1996, Randy Morgenson was reported missing, as he'd failed to check in after several days of radio calls. Although it's typically very common for Randy to miss his check-in calls, as he was known for taking short camping trips throughout the area, fellow ranger Rick Sanger believed that the 5 days of disappearance was uncharacteristic of Randy. Once the investigation was underway, search and rescue volunteers and fellow rangers discovered a note within his tent, dated on the 21st, claiming that he was planning to go camping for 2 to 3 days and should return on the 23rd or 24th of the month. The discovery of the note would lead to one of the most intense search and rescue operations ever recorded, given the fact that the rangers were searching for one of their own. By the 25th of July 1996, more than 100 volunteers were covering an 80 square mile search grid. They'd been searching in locations that he was known to frequent. What seemed to have been the most bizarre for the search and rescue teams was the fact that Morganson was one of the most experienced outdoorsmen of the entire park, and was known for carrying several redundancies in equipment, including a radio that he should have been able to use to pick up any incoming signals. After several days of searching for Randy, and unable to find any signs of the missing ranger, colleagues began to speculate that perhaps Randy was attempting to fake his own death, so that his wife could cash the $100,000 life insurance policy, as he had been complaining of financial issues over the past few weeks prior to his disappearance. These statements and speculations would lead to the national park to hire a special private investigator, who would search Randy's bank statements and would find that since his disappearance, no activity was recorded for any of his accounts. Additionally, Randy's car was still parked nearby. Over the next following days, the search for Randy appeared to take bizarre turns, as the use of search and rescue canines were used that seemed to find Randy's scent, only for it to disappear and reappear in vastly different areas. The dogs would also help to turn up several pieces of equipment used by Randy that appeared to have been scattered several miles from each other, in random directions, as if the pieces of the ranger's equipment were thrown randomly. Even more peculiar, as the search was underway, and a helicopter equipped with infrared thermal cameras was used in the area, the helicopter suddenly picked up on a random campfire atop one of the nearby mountains. Randy was known for frequenting this area. Immediately, search and rescue volunteers went to the campsite and found equipment they believed linked Randy to the area, but noticed that the site appeared to have been abandoned for several days, and the campfire seemed to have been burning while completely unattended. Oddly enough, marked and dated 2 days after Randy's disappearance, Randy's wife Julie Morganson would receive a letter from Randy that would arrive a week after the postmark date on their home in Arizona. Investigators were unable to explain the sudden letter, as the national park did not have a postal service, and Randy's car had not been moved from its location for several weeks. The letter, however, would add to the suspicion that Randy had faked his own passing, and used his disappearance to ensure his wife would collect the $100,000. 13 days following Randy's disappearance, the search efforts would come to a standstill, and Randy Morgenson, one of the most experienced outdoorsmen and rangers, was assumed to have passed away sometime in July of 1996. No sign of Randy was ever recovered, not even a footprint. Several years later, sometime in July of 2001, almost exactly 5 years after Randy's disappearance, a young 19-year-old boy working with the California Conservation Trail building crew traveled and came across a tattered shirt pinned with Randy Morgenson's ranger badge. Without hesitation, a team of search and rescue rangers traveled to the area and soon located the remains of Randy Morgenson, including a backpack with the buckle still fastened, a boot that had a protruding leg bone, and a functioning park radio. Upon closer inspection, rangers remarked that Randy's radio appeared to have been left in the on position, as if he had attempted to make contact with fellow rangers, but was unable for some reason. Even more difficult to explain, the location where Randy's remains were discovered had been searched thoroughly, and this was done several times by the park rangers, who marked the areas off several times by computer, but had not recovered any sight of Randy in the area. So what do you make of the mysterious disappearance of Randy Morgenson? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comment section below, and help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.